Naim is the founder of Sabil, and in Arabic, Sabil means a stream of living water. And he has enabled Sabil to bring people from all over the world to conferences. From New Zealand, Australia, Canada, United States, Germany, England, all over gathered, and then formed groups of friends of Sabil around the world in their home countries. And so this is a way for people to see firsthand what it's like to live as a Palestinian day by day under occupation. How hard and difficult and cruel it is. So the daily experience we begin to understand as far as the catastrophe. And so this is a new narrative that both our friends, our guests, will speak about. A narrative which our government and the media have misconstrued as far as the Palestinian situation. Naim has a new book also. I gotta hold that up because I held up one. Yep. Here it is. Just off the press last Friday. A Palestinian Theology of Liberation, the Bible, Justice, and the Palestinian-Israel Conflict. And I think I don't think there'll be an extra charge if you sign the books. Okay. And I get no commission, right? Well, our guests, I believe, are extraordinary human beings who have given their life to fight against injustice and for human relations that are respectful. And so I am pleased to introduce to you my friend Naim, and who will be followed by my friend Naim. One last thing. I got 3 copies of the Washington Report, which is an excellent publication, and they're on the table. Just take them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz, very much for your kind words. It's great to be here in Iowa, and it's so wonderful to see you all. I feel like I'm back home with all the friends that I have seen here. So thank you all for being here. It's great to join you today. So I bring you greetings from your friends back home, your brothers and sisters, and I want to thank you for making the effort to be present today. One thing I'd just like to find out, because I have recognized a good number of you from previous times, but I would like to know whether there are people among us who really would appreciate maybe a background, to know a little bit more about the background of the conflict, because I was not planning to give a background, and I was talking to my friend Phyllis, because she has written so much about that, whether we need to give a background. But, from just looking around, I think most of you probably have been very much engaged in this issue and are very familiar with it. But let me just ask, are there people who really would appreciate some form of a background, because they are not really totally aware of the background to the conflict? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. Well, thank you for coming. I mean, we really appreciate this, but that gives us an idea. More, I guess, to Phyllis to see how she can help you with that. How many of you are friends of Sabil here? again, thank you. I recognize you. Thank you very much for your support, and thank you for the work that you've been doing for many years and in this. And I just, before I begin my presentation, I just want to make it very clear. I am addressing the problem of religion today in Israel, Palestine, and especially in Israel, and what's really happening on the religious scene. But I need to make it very clear that I'm really talking about these racist, extremist, religious settlers. So this I need to, so I'm not talking, if I use the term Jews or Jewish, I'll try to make it clear that I'm talking about these extremists. It's very important. Okay, just one more thing about this book, which I hope, thank you Liz for introducing the book. But there is a little girl who is skipping, jumping from one place to another. Those of you, most of you who have been there, you know, you've seen the big concrete blocks which the Israeli army has, that blocks the roads to the villages, blocks the streets, whatever. They don't show very well in this picture, you know. But this is what she's doing. It is the entrance to the old city of Hebron. So you see the checkpoint, and many of you have seen it, and you have to go through it, you know. But this little girl is so unaware of what's really happening. And these are a number of these concrete blocks. And she's skipping from one to another and having a great time. So I thought that this is a great picture because of its many implications. And so I just wanted you, because by looking at it, unless you really carefully look at it, you will not see the big blocks, the concrete blocks. So I just want to mention that before I begin. Okay, let me begin my presentation, and I've entitled "When Religion Becomes Part of the Problem." There are two events in the evolution of religious Zionism that I would consider as turning points that led the government of Israel into a decisive right-wing trajectory. The first took place on February 25, 1994, when Baruch Goldstein, an American-born Jew and medical doctor, went into the Ibrahimi Mosque in Hebron with a machine gun and sprayed Muslims while at prayer, killing 29 Muslims, Muslim worshippers, and injuring dozens. Goldstein was praised by fellow extremist settlers as a martyr. And martyrs are above saints. That's what some of them believe. And above righteous men. The second event took place 10 months later, on November 4, 1995, when Yigal Amir, a young Jewish religious Zionist, assassinated the Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. Amir was opposed to Rabin's peace initiative, particularly the signing of the Oslo Accords, which included Israeli withdrawal from the West Bank. For Amir, it would deny Jews their biblical heritage, which they had reclaimed by establishing settlements. Amir had come to believe that Rabin, by accepting Oslo, was endangering Jewish lives. For me, both of these tragic events indicated a new trajectory for the religious extremists in Israel. They reflected a Zionist mindset that expressed itself in the negation and denial of the rights of the Palestinian people and negation of their right to the land. Goldstein had taken an oath as a physician to maintain, I'm quoting the oath of the physicians, to maintain the utmost respect for human life. And yet what he did was a betrayal of his solemn oath. His deep animosity and loathing of Palestinian Muslims and their religion degraded himself to the level of a murderer. His crime also reflected the theology of a God that is a bigot and a xenophobe. Tragically, it reflected a theology of the other which is in line with some of the exclusive texts in the Hebrew Bible, especially in the Torah. It seems to me that this philosophy and theology continues to inspire today's religious extremist settlers in Israel. Goldstein believed that the Palestinians, in God's eye, the way he believed, were dispensable, and he was commanded by God to kill them. According to Deuteronomy, this is one of the books of the Torah in the Old Testament, chapter 7, verse 2. I'm quoting, "When the Lord your God gives them," that is, gives all the people of the land to ancient Israelites, over to you, and you defeat them, then you must utterly destroy them. Make no covenant with them, and show them no mercy. Now this is in the Bible. I'm just quoting. Listen to it again. When the Lord your God gives you the people of the land, you defeat them, you must utterly destroy them, make no covenant with them, and show them no mercy. So people like Goldstein saw the people of the land as the ancient Canaanites, and that he's commanded by God to destroy them. For Yigal Amir, the one who assassinated Prime Minister Rabin, he was meant to prevent any possibility on the part of the government of Israel to compromise by giving back any part of the land of Israel. Rabin, as a secular Jew, represented for Amir the epitome of sacrilegious behavior. It was also meant to be a warning for Israeli leaders. Anyone who dares to even think or entertain the idea of sharing any of the land of Israel with the Palestinians will meet a similar fate. What Goldstein and Amir did has become a template for the policies and actions of settlers today. It has impacted the policies and strategies of the successive right-wing Likud governments. At the same time, Palestinian resistance has been growing. The level of frustration among Palestinian youth has also grown, and with no hope in sight, they have been tragically, desperately, and I would even say foolishly, committing atrocities. Almost every week, a Palestinian is killed under the pretense of trying to stab a soldier or use their car to run over an Israeli Jew. Sometimes these allegations are true, while other times it is false. Many innocent young men and women have been killed, accused, or suspected of stabbing a Jewish person. There is no attempt to wound them from the soldiers. They don't wound. The Israeli soldiers are trained to shoot to kill, with no thorough or independent investigation to follow. Israeli extremist settlers are taking the law into their own hands with price tag attacks, which extract a price for any government effort to limit Jewish settlements on the West Bank. The torching and defacing of the Church of the Multiplication of the Loaves and Fishes in Tabgha, near the Sea of Galilee, on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, was dubbed price tag, with graffiti denouncing Christian idol worship. Rabbi Israel Ariel, a very extremist rabbi, classifies Christians and Muslims as idol worshippers. Another Jewish extremist, Benzai Goldstein, publicly called for the burning of churches. Israeli police have not charged Goldstein over the incident, although Israeli law prohibits incitement to racism. Many of these religious settlers over the years have joined the army and now have come to occupy key positions. Most of them are committed against the Palestinians and show no qualms about killing them. The reason I am focusing on these fundamentalists is not because there are no extremists among Christians or extremists among Muslims, but because today in Israel, these extremists are in control. That's the big difference. They are the leaders of the extremist settlers, and many of them are ministers in the Israeli government. I want to emphasize this. These people I'm talking about, many of them are ministers in the government, the right-wing government of Netanyahu. They are in positions of authority and power, and they show and practice their racism, and it is frightening, my friends. They show total disregard for international law and negate Palestinians' rights for the land. Many of these extremist religious settlers have maybe they surpassed or outgrown Zionism. There has been a drastic change in the ideology that inspires them. For many years, Jewish Zionists had been motivated by the ideology of Zionism. Their Zionist zealotry has morphed into religious zealotry. Now they are motivated not by Zionism, they are motivated by the Torah and by their Jewish religious traditions. Many of them consider Zionism only a stage that was necessary, or maybe God used it, to bring the Jews back into Palestine. But for them, these religious extremists, for them, Zionism is passé now. No longer needed. They want to live according to God's law, as written in the Torah and the Halakha, the Jewish law, and equally by some of the Jewish sages and teachers of the past as well as the present. One of their favorites is Maimonides, a Jewish medieval philosopher. These religious extremists are not interested in peace with the Palestinians. They have reversed the narrative. According to them, the Palestinians are considered as thieves and robbers. It is we, Palestinians, the way they believe, we have stolen the land. And we need to be thrown out because we have taken the land of Israel. Just imagine, they reverse the narrative. From their perspective, they are taking their land back. They are redeeming it and sanctifying it. Whenever they confiscate Palestinian land for building settlements or strip the Palestinians of their homes, they believe that they are not stealing the land, but they are transferring it from the satanic to the divine sphere. It is permitted to lie. They believe it's okay to lie and falsify documents and even use force because their motive is righteous. In fact, the halakha, Jewish law, permits Jews to rob non-Jewish people, especially when the Jewish people are stronger than the non-Jews. This is all documented. So I'm not bringing anything from me. I'm documenting all of this. Many of these fundamentalist rabbis have continually reiterated that Jews who killed Arabs or who kill Arabs should not be punished. Rabbi Ariel states, a Jew, I'm quoting him, a Jew who kills a non-Jew is exempt from human judgment and has not violated the religious prohibition of murder. Recently, when one Israeli soldier was indicted for killing a Palestinian and the court sentenced him to 1.5 years in jail, there were big demonstrations by religious extremists against this. They protested the jail sentence, although it was only for 1.5 years for killing a human being. According to Jewish religious law, what he did was not murder. The Talmud states that 2 contrary types of souls exist in the world. A non-Jewish soul comes from the satanic spheres, while the Jewish soul stems from the holiness. Rabbi Kook, chief rabbi of Palestine in the 1920s, and revered as the father of messianic tendency of Jewish fundamentalism today, said the difference between a Jewish soul and souls of non-Jews is greater and deeper than the difference between a human soul and the souls of cattle. Let me give you a tangible example. As a living example of the drastic changes that have taken place with Netanyahu's right-wing government and the increasing unruly behavior of the extremist settlers and its general impact on our Palestinian people, I would like to focus for a moment on a person by the name of Bezalel Smotrich. The deputy Knesset is Israel's parliament. He is the deputy Knesset speaker. He's the deputy Knesset speaker. He's a rising star in the national religious Habayit HaYehudi, the Jewish Home Party. Most secular Israelis know 3 things about Smotrich, this Knesset, deputy Knesset speaker. His wife said that she does not want to give birth alongside an Arab woman. They're both giving birth. She doesn't want to be close to an Arab woman. Incidentally, these extremists would never say Palestinian. They don't use the word Palestinian. They always use the word Arab. It's a generic thing. The second point, this guy Smotrich, considers Reform Judaism as a fake religion, Now, most Jews in the United States are Reformed. This is the biggest denomination of Jews. And this is not, and this Reformed Judaism officially is not recognized in Israel. It's the religious, the Orthodox, that are really in control there. He also, this guy Smotrich, is considered as a proud homophobe. He has been described as a bizarre, racist, homophobic extremist. But he is the deputy speaker in the parliament. He is 37 years old, and he has a plan to resolve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And he dubbed his plan the subjugation plan. That's the name of his plan. Under his plan, he's ready to give the Palestinians 3 choices. 1, leave the country. 2, fight Israel. And if you fight Israel, you'll be destroyed mercilessly, exactly as what I read you from the book of Deuteronomy. You will be destroyed. And the third is to accept living under Israel with the status of a resident alien. I'm going to say more about resident alien in a minute. But this means that they have no political or voting rights and will always have an inferior status living in Israel. The term in Hebrew is ger tushav, resident alien. It's not his creation, but this is from the Bible. It's found in the Torah, in the book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 33. It mentions the ger tushav. I have done quite a bit of research on the question of the ger tushav, and I have tried to discuss it more thoroughly in my new book. By contrasting the understanding of ger tushav in what is written in the Torah, in the book of Leviticus, with what is written in the book of Ezekiel, again in the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible. The problem is that religious Jews believe that what is written in the Torah, the first 5 books, is authoritative, and the prophets are not authoritative. So they don't really pay much attention to Ezekiel, the prophet after the exile, but they will pay great attention to what is written in the Torah. Ezekiel, in my opinion, pronounces a new understanding of the ger tushav, and gives, because in Ezekiel, when you read the text, chapter 47, he's talking about all the people of the land having equality, equal status, living together, no difference, but not in Leviticus. So the Leviticus text is more exclusive theologically, while the latter, Ezekiel, reflects a movement towards the inclusive. Ezekiel his actual fact was critiquing Leviticus and replacing it with a commandment from God for total equality among the people of the land. It's amazing when you look at the text. And this is what I try to explain to help people understand. Smotrich, this deputy Knesset speaker, is emphasizing that Leviticus text because he refuses to believe that all people are equal before God. He believes that the Palestinians are inferior. Another important point about the subjugation plan of Smotrich is that it is really not original by him. He is referring to a midrash of the book of Joshua. A midrash in Hebrew is an ancient commentary on a certain text in the Hebrew Bible. So the Midrash says that Joshua, you remember the book of Joshua in the Bible, that Joshua sent letters to the people of Canaan with three choices: to leave, to fight, or to submit to live as inferior subjects. Rabbi Maimonides was the greatest Jewish philosopher in the medieval Judaism. He is much loved and listened to by many of the extremist settlers. Maimonides wrote that if the people decide to stay under Jewish rule, they should be despised and lowly and not raise their head in Israel. If they resist, not a soul must be left among them. This is the subjugation plan of Smotrich. So what is happening? You know, on one hand, the secular Jewish people in Israel should be, from what we know, a majority. But what is really happening? An ever-growing part of Israelis drift towards this religious form of ultra-nationalism that portrays Jews as superior, chosen people with God-given rights that trump simple, man-made notions like human rights and gender equality. Smotrich has a well-defined worldview. All of the greater land of Israel belongs to Jews alone by virtue of God's decree. No human-made law can compete with God's will. Israel therefore must annex all the West Bank, abort any Palestinian hope for a national home, and face them with the three choices: to leave, to fight, or to live under Israel with an inferior status, i.e. apartheid. One of the articles that I read on this, the writer, it appeared in Haaretz, a newspaper, and this guy says the following, I'm quoting: "Psychology has long ago given a convincing explanation for phenomena like Israelis' willingness to embrace this worldview. Cognitive dissonance theory has shown that in the long run, human beings cannot live feeling that what they do is bad. If they cannot stop doing it, they change their beliefs to the point where they feel justified in acting as they do. Israel has been the occupying power for 50 years, and young Israelis have grown up knowing nothing else. It has become a fact of life, but they try to repress this oppressive fact against the Palestinians. Some have left the country. They cannot stand it anymore. But a growing number of Israelis avoid feeling guilty by gradually adopting the national religious ideology that justifies Israel's actions. Smotrich is an expression of the Israeli unconscious. His belief that Jews are the chosen people with more rights than others is the religious version of white supremacists in America that has been raising its ugly head in the United States. He concludes the article, this writer, in the way Haaretz had it. He concludes the article with the words, "While I do not know how to fight the national religious mentality, liberal secular Israelis should take it very seriously. It may be the future it may be Israel's future. One of the characteristics of fundamentalist religiosity is the reduction of religious traditions into a rigid and simplistic framework of principles, as if all eras of history are identical and what was true 2,000 years ago is still valid exactly today. Their belief is clear. If it is the literal word of God, then it can be transported at any time from the past into the present. This is true about fundamentalism in all of our three religion traditions in the Middle East. Smotrich is a dangerous fundamentalist who seeks to give the Palestinians a choice between transfer, apartheid, or genocide. Remember these words. Transfer, get out, ethnic cleansing, or live in an apartheid status, or genocide. You will be killed. So this writer says this guy should be removed from his post in the Knesset and thrown out of the Knesset. The fear is that Smotrich is moving from the margin to the center. This is what people are afraid of. Now, so what am I saying? In the end, I want to give a few points. It's clear to many people that Netanyahu is behind those extreme ideas. He has encouraged and promoted this type of fundamentalism. He doesn't want history to remember him as the person who acceded to the establishment of a Palestinian state. Another point. The shock is the fact that by and large, the secular Israelis are silent, as if they have surrendered to the religious nationalists. So far, they have not been able to defeat the religious nationalists. Another point. Consequently, with the rise in the power of the religious nationalists and their insistence on living by the Jewish law, halakha, Israel is morphing into a religious state. With the religious extremists in control, another point, the idea of accepting to share the land with the Palestinians becomes more difficult. The government of Israel today is a right-wing government with a growing number of ministers who are settlers and living on the settlements. The old saying is becoming frighteningly true, that democracy can live with a religion, but a religion cannot live with democracy. Whatever modicum of democracy Israel has created is being eroded as fundamentalist religion takes over. Another point. The reality on the ground for the Palestinian people is getting much worse. Racist behavior by the settlers against the Palestinians is increasing, and the right-wing government is not addressing it. Palestinians are getting killed not in the name of a Zionist ideology, but in the name of a religion and in the name of God. Another point. When people's concept of God becomes tribal and exclusive, many people, including those who dissent or who are conscientious, will suffer. And finally, it sounds contradictory that when religion goes berserk, it becomes very dangerous to itself as well as to others. When its adherents kill a Palestinian, they believe they are doing service to God. And this is what this final word, final sentence, is what Jesus himself said in the book of John, in the Gospel of John. He said, the day will come when they kill you, they think they're doing service to God. This is fundamentalism. So let me end with just a few more words. For those who are Jewish among us, you might already be aware of the reality of the situation in Israel-Palestine. If you are not aware, please check the veracity of my words. If my assessment is true, please raise the alarm. There are atrocities being committed in the name of your religion, the name of Judaism. And it needs to stop. You are the best qualified to do something about it. The government of Israel is not listening. It is not paying attention to international law, to human rights, to many Jewish people. Many Jewish people are working with us, but they are not listened to. More recently, some of the Jewish people have been turned back from going to Israel. Smotrich and his ilk, people like him, could be the future of Israel. And this is scary. For those of us who are not Jewish, but care about justice, about peace, and the liberation of all people, and in this case, the liberation of the Palestinian people, please raise your voice even louder and do whatever you can to stop the madness and the insanity of a terrible situation. We need to do it for the sake of our common humanity and for the sake of the God who calls us to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk in humility and love of God and neighbor. Thank you. So we have time. Christine? Good question, yeah. Where's Christine? Is she here? Christine?
Yes.
Would you mind coming to just help organize for the question time? Because I might not be very fair.
Yes. How about if I give you the microphone, that way everybody can stand up and turn around. I've been watching the Vietnam War series on television, and to me, all of this is part of the same cloth: fundamentalism, nationalism, believing that we're right, they're wrong, that we have the right to exert power and kill people and destroy their property. And so I think, even though he's talking about the Israeli government, I think our government is equally complicit because we support them. We give them billions of dollars, and they turn right around and use all that money to buy our weapons to kill Palestinians. And so, we may not be able to do very much about Israel directly, but I think what we need to do is influence our government to stop supporting Israelis' atrocities.
No, I think this is a very good suggestion, because if the United States takes the matter more seriously, and unfortunately it has never been on the side of justice. It has always been influenced by powers within this country that has made it biased towards towards Israel and biased against the Palestinians. So thank you for your comment.
It's pretty short.
Okay.
Are there any other countries in the world that support Israel like the United States of America supports Israel?
Maybe, I mean, from what I know, I mean, there are some people, some countries who have traditionally voted, but with Israel, but like say in the Security Council of the United Nations, sometimes all the Security Council members have been voting against Israeli violations of international law and UN resolutions and all of this. It's the United States itself that have always stood with Israel, you know. So I'm not really aware. I mean, traditionally, for example, Britain created the problem with the Balfour Declaration. Incidentally, this is 100 years on Balfour, as you know. So they are, so America, so Britain has a great responsibility in this. But at times, Britain takes a stand that is much more fair. But it's the United States that consistently has stood with Israel. But you remember when Obama was here, and one time he took a different stand, and people could not even believe it, But I think I would love to see the United States just to be honest, with itself. We are not against Israel. We want Israel to live in peace, but Israel has to do justice. And that's what the problem.
But I was asking financial.
Financial.
Any financial, the United States spends billions, but does anyone else spend more than
If I'm not mistaken, and Phyllis might correct me, I think only the United States, Germany still pays reparation money, because of the Holocaust, but I'm not really aware of any other country that is. Is it right or?
No, that is right. Israel, depending on whether you believe the IMF or the CIA, is either the 23rd or the 27th wealthiest country in the world. So no other country sees the need to provide any financial assistance, military or economic.
Yeah, I understand from Liz, she was quoting this, that the United States gives Israel $8 million
$3 million a day.
a day.
It's over 10 million.
And over 10 million. Just imagine. There are many homeless in this country. There are many other things that this country. Now look at all the disasters in Florida and Puerto Rico. But that's part of the tragedy. And there is. I think I have it. Maybe I will give you some address. Maybe you're aware of it, but it was a very short interview, and you can find it because I was able to find it recently. But it's between a Jewish guy, and he tells you about the power of AIPAC. What AIPAC can do. So there are these people who are keep the United States administration on what they feel their side. And I think it's very tragic.
Yes, so this gentleman here.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm not part of the organizing, but I want to thank everybody for coming out on a Saturday morning for this meeting. Otherwise, it would not have a service point to listeners. But I believe most of the attendees here are from Iowa. And not to make this political, but our governor, Mrs. Reynolds, just returned from Israel. And she took a delegation with her. Not out of support for Israel, but out of support for Iowa exports, which I've been doing for 40 years. I filled out an application to attend the conference, and Peggy Kerr at the Iowa Department of Economic Development said, "We do not believe this trip is appropriate for you, and we're not accepting your application." So I said, that's fine. I said, we'll do our exports from the surrounding states. But my point is, if you have relationship with your Iowa senators or congressmen or representatives, for Christy Reynolds to go to Israel and invite Benjamin Netanyahu personally to come to Iowa is not of Iowa's integrity or history. Israel's relationship to Iowa is minimal. I believe the last statistic showed about $18 million of Iowa exports to Israel, which is minimal compared to our exports to any other region. So reach out to the governor's office, your senators, your congressmen, and object to the governor of Iowa inviting Netanyahu personally to come to Iowa. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'll come back to you.
To the gentleman's point, my communications with Senator Grassley's office about Israel has, for the last year, elicited the exact same form letter 3 separate times. I absolutely agree with you that communicating with those offices is necessary, but at least where Senator Grassley is concerned, I believe that is a lost cause. And unless groups like this can somehow succeed in grasping his attention, that may be an exercise in futility.
May I ask if you've been to the office or you just write or call?
Communicating, right, not listening.
We have been to their offices to no avail. They sit and smile and nod their head very politely, and then as soon as you walk out the door, it's like, huh.
I remember.
Oh, you remember? Okay, I'll come back to you. I know how it is. When you've got it in your head, you've got to get it out.
Well, my question was, within Israel today, the political divisions, where are the Sephardic Jewish community with respect to this radical position, and the other Middle Eastern Jewish communities like the Yemenite and the Iraqis? Are they in support of the settler nationalists, or where are they?
From what I know, you find some individuals among all of these, that are very aware and very conscientious and very progressive in their ideas. But also you find some extremists even among them. So I don't think we can generalize totally, because we have a number of Eastern Jews. I've met some people who see themselves as Arab Jews, so they're very upset with the government position, but at the same time, you have others that are very much part of the flow. But, as I mentioned, some people are so upset because of the silence of some of the more secular, and some people are leaving the country. Every now and then I come across news items where Jews cannot stand it anymore. So whether they are Eastern or whether they are Ashkenazi.
I can project that on you, Mike. I get to go to Gaza, and I go as often as I can. And I recently wrote Senators Grassley and Ernst because they're co-sponsors of the anti-BDS legislation, federal legislation. And I made my emails very, very personal. And actually, Joni Ernst's Foreign Affairs staffer called me and spoke to me never heard back from Joni. And then Senator Grassley, like 2 or 3 weeks later, finally answered, and it wasn't a form letter, it was a personal response. But it didn't change their positions, but I think that when we reach out and we share personal experiences, I share the suffering of the people in Gaza that I've been lucky enough to bear witness to, that I think is really powerful for them to hear.
I've been wondering this for years, and you touched upon it briefly, and I think this might be the answer to my question about cognitive dissonance. But one thing to me that has never made sense, I've never been able to understand, how can the Jewish people do this to the Palestinians after everything Hitler did to them? I just don't understand. It seems so hypocritical and so double standard to me, so sorry.
May I? Again, I think Phyllis can answer this later, but it's amazing. I'm talking about our humanity, that we are complex people. We can be oppressors, and we can be oppressed, and we can be oppressed, and then we turn to become oppressors. This is unbelievable. This dynamic of oppressor-oppressed can change quickly. And at the same time, some of our best speakers, writers, are Jewish people who are fighting with us, struggling with us against the occupation and against the government injustice. So there are people, the problem now, as I mentioned here, and that's why I preceded started by qualifying what I'm going to say, because I don't want to leave the impression that, I'm just only, I'm not aware of what the good that many of the Jewish people are doing, with us, and more than we are. They're, most of the time, they're the better writers than we are, and the better speakers than we are. But, so, it's not like a blanket thing, it's not like a big generalization. But today, this is our fear, is that we are moving towards a situation that there is no democracy. We've never seen the democracy of Israel as Palestinians. We've never felt it, But now it's getting much worse, even for Israelis. Even for Israelis who are leaving the country. And I'll tell you one thing. What is one of the favorite places for Israeli Jews? Is Berlin. I couldn't believe it when I went to Berlin some years ago, and I met a good number of Jews, and they said, we're here, back in Berlin. Germany is beginning to look much better than being in Israel. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. Again, Phyllis is my correct, she corrects me. Yeah.
All right, we have time for one more question here.
I had the privilege of going to both Israel and Palestine. I was invited by a secular Jewish community development group, and they work mainly with Sephardic Jews. And we met with some very interesting groups that were providing alternative service to citizens of Israel who did not want to go into the army. But if you don't go into the army, you have no political future.
Yeah.
And so it's like we have this sorrow of people who really care about Palestinian rights, who will not serve in an oppressive army. That means their voice is never heard.
Yeah.
All right, it's 10:30, so unless you wanted to make a comment about
That's very short. Yes, but you know, there are Israeli groups, organizations that are beginning to raise their voices and have been raising their voices for a number of years. Like, you know, refuseniks, people who would never serve in the army in the West Bank, they refuse it, you know. We are working as partners with Jewish Voice for Peace in this country, and they're wonderful. And, but there are also, you know, not in my name. We usually invite Jewish people to speak in our conferences and so on, because they see. Unfortunately, there are people who don't see, and this is one of our, I guess, important ministry or work for us, is that to help them see what's really happening. I knew all this, what I'm saying about, but recently I've been reading some articles. I couldn't believe. I mean, these people who have done the research have helped me to really see things in a way that it's alarms. It's dangerous. The danger is it raises this. And on the Iowa thing, from my little experience, if you only do it individually, they're not going to listen to you here. But if you begin to organize and do some things as communities, as groups, maybe the people in power will begin to pay attention. And I would encourage you to do that in Iowa. Thank you.
Thank you.